The rain fell in silver sheets against the windshield. I was driving alone, down a forgotten highway that wound through endless, dark pine trees. The radio had died an hour ago, leaving only the rhythmic thump of the wipers and the low hum of the engine to fill the silence. I should have reached my aunt's place before nightfall, but this storm, it had other plans. Then, through the downpour, a yellow sign flickered. Hollow Creek Motel. Vacancy. I've never been so relieved to see a sign in my life. The place looked half abandoned, a row of wooden doors under a buzzing neon light. It was the kind of place you only stop at when you have absolutely no other choice. Inside the small dusty office, a sleepy clerk handed me a rusted brass key. The tag read 7. He didn't ask any questions, and I didn't offer any answers. The corridor smelled like damp carpet and old paint, a smell that clings to your clothes. Room 7's door creaked open with a reluctant groan, revealing a small, dimly lit space. One bed, one dresser, one mirror with a jagged crack down the corner. I tossed my wet jacket over a chair and plugged in my phone, even though there was no signal. Just a habit, I guess. Outside, thunder rolled like distant, heavy footsteps. I told myself it was just exhaustion. The long drive, the rain, the weight of the week. But then came the sound. A single, sharp knock. It came from the door. I froze, my heart pounding against my ribs. I just stared at the handle, waiting. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Nothing. I figured it was just the wind, or the old wooden frame settling in the moisture. Trying to shake it off, I went to the window and pulled the curtain aside. The parking lot was empty except for my car, its headlights reflecting in the growing puddles. There was no one out there. I went back to the bed, switched off the lamp, and let the darkness settle around me. The rain softened to a whisper against the glass. Then, another knock. 2 taps this time. Slow, deliberate. I sat bolt upright, my breath a visible cloud in the cold air. "Hello?" My voice trembled, weak against the silence. No answer, just the quiet hum of the old building. I tiptoed to the door, my heart in my throat, and peered through the peephole. It was useless. The hallway outside was pitch black. As I pulled away, my own reflection stared back at me from the cracked mirror beside the door. Pale, uncertain, with eyes wide with a fear I didn't want to admit. Just to be safe, I turned the lock, then double-checked it. And then I checked it one more time. For a while, nothing happened. The storm eased, and the buzz of the motel sign pulsed like a faint, irregular heartbeat through the thin walls. I tried to lie back down to close my eyes, but my mind kept replaying those knocks. Who would be out in this weather? The clerk? Another guest? But I hadn't seen any other cars. It didn't make any sense. Desperate for a distraction, I turned on the small TV. Static. Every channel was dead air. The digital clock on the nightstand blinked a menacing 2:47 a.m. The storm outside had stopped completely now, leaving behind a heavy, unnatural quiet. Even the crickets had gone silent. The silence was so absolute it felt like it was pressing in on my ears until my own pulse became the loudest sound in the room. My gaze drifted back to that cracked mirror. The crack ran through the center like a lightning scar. For a split second, I thought I saw movement in the reflection, a dark shape standing just behind my shoulder. I spun around, my body tensed, ready for anything. The room was empty. Of course it was empty. I let out a nervous laugh, muttering to myself, "You're just exhausted, that's all." I turned back toward the mirror, and my reflection smiled, a half second too late. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a sudden jarring noise that made me jump out of my skin. A notification? No, just a glitch, a flicker of light, and then the screen went dark again. The battery was dead. The air in the room felt heavier now, thicker, like the oxygen was thinning out. I could taste metal in the back of my throat, and that same strange taste you get right before a lightning strike or right before pure, primal fear takes over. I sat on the edge of the bed, straining my ears, listening for any sound. Nothing moved. Then, from somewhere deep in the hallway, a door slammed shut. Then another, closer this time. And another. Each slam was a hammer blow to my nerves. I held my breath, listening as the sound got nearer and nearer. The last door that slammed, it sounded like my own. When I finally found the courage to move, I crept to the door and pressed my ear against the cold wood. Silence. Complete and total silence. I waited, long enough for my heartbeat to sync with the ticking of the clock. Then came a faint whisper, a sigh, so close it felt like it was right beside my ear. Knock, knock. My body went cold. I stumbled backward, my eyes locked on the door handle. It twitched, just once, a tiny, subtle movement, like someone on the other side was gently testing it. That was it. I grabbed my car keys, my shoes half on, ready to bolt, but something held me back. It wasn't curiosity, it was something else. A strange sense of recognition, as if, deep down, I already knew who was knocking. The lights in the room flickered and died. The crack in the mirror seemed to spread like a spiderweb in the gloom, and I whispered into the darkness, "Who's there?" There was no reply, only the sound of rain beginning to fall again outside, slow, steady drops like fingertips drumming against the window pane. I sank back against the wall, trembling, my eyes glued to that door, waiting for the next knock that never came. But somewhere, beneath the rumble of the new thunder, faint and deep, I thought I heard it again. One single, hollow tap, coming from inside the room. The night felt endless, each minute stretching on like a rope about to snap. I couldn't sleep. I just sat there, propped up against the wall, my dead phone clutched in my hand. I stared at the door, willing it to stay shut, willing whatever was out there to stay away. But nothing came. Only the steady drip, drip, drip of rain from the gutter and the low hum of the motel's neon sign. When morning finally broke, it brought no relief. Just a flat, gray light that bled through the curtains, revealing the motel for what it really was. The paint was peeling, the ground was a mess of mud puddles, and the whole place was wrapped in an unnerving silence. I went to the front desk, but it was empty. The clerk was gone. Just a little bell on the counter that made no sound when I tapped it. For a terrifying second, I thought I was the only person left in the entire place. Then, outside, I saw something that made my skin crawl. Muddy footprints leading away from my door. They followed the narrow walkway and stopped dead at room 9. No car, no noise, nothing. I tried to tell myself it was just the cleaner or another guest, but a chill was already working its way up my spine. I knocked on the door of room 9, just a light tap. To my horror, it swung open on its own. The room was completely empty, stripped bare. No bed, no curtains, just dust motes dancing in the dim light, and a single old mirror leaning against the far wall. It looked exactly like the one in my room, but this one wasn't cracked. As I turned to leave, I caught a flash of movement in the glass. It wasn't my reflection. It was a young woman, standing right behind me. Her blonde hair was soaked, her dress dripping, and her eyes were wide with a terror I knew all too well. I gasped and spun around, but the room was empty. When I dared to look back at the mirror, it only showed my own pale, frightened face. That night, the storm came back with a vengeance. The wind howled, and it almost sounded like it was carrying whispers, sneaking through every crack in the walls. I sat by the lamp with my notebook, just trying to keep my hands from shaking. I drew the shape of the footprints I'd seen, then tried to sketch the girl's face from the mirror. My handwriting was a mess. I wrote, "Who are you?" The pen scratched so hard it tore right through the paper. I slammed the notebook shut, my heart pounding in my chest. And that's when the knock came again. Not faint this time. It was sharp. 2 knocks. Slow, deliberate, and final. My whole body went rigid. I looked from the door to the mirror. My own reflection seemed to darken, the shadows behind me shifting as if something was breathing there. My voice was barely a whisper. "Who's there?" The reply didn't come from the hallway. It came from inside the room, from the mirror. A soft voice echoing, like it was trapped behind the glass. "You came back." My heart just about stopped. I stumbled backward until I hit the edge of the bed. "Who said that?" I screamed, my eyes darting around the empty room. The reflection of the lamp flickered, and then she was there again, in the mirror. The same girl. Soaked hair, blank stare, dripping dress. She lifted her hand, slowly, and pressed her palm against the glass from the other side. The mirror fogged up around her touch. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. There was something familiar about her face now. Not a stranger, but someone I felt like I should know. Her lips moved, forming a single, silent word. "Why?" The lamp flickered one last time, and she was gone. I just collapsed. Tears streamed down my face. Tears I didn't even understand. What was this place? Who was that girl? I had to get out. I grabbed my things in a panic. Keys, phone, bag. But when I threw the door open, the hallway was wrong. The floorboards were warped and rotted, and the air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. The neon sign outside wasn't red anymore. It was a sickly, pale white, flickering like a dying pulse. I ran towards the office, but the front desk was gone. Just an empty wooden frame covered in dust. The motel looked like it had been abandoned for decades. Panic seized me. I turned to look for my car, but it wasn't there. The entire parking lot was swallowed by a thick, unnatural fog. The rain had stopped, but everything was still dripping, as if the storm had just passed moments ago. I scrambled back to my room, slammed the door, and leaned against it, gasping for air. That's when my phone lit up on its own. The screen showed the time, 3:03 a.m., the exact time I'd heard the second knock. A new sound broke the silence, a soft creak. The mirror. It was shifting on the wall. As if pushed from behind, it started to tilt forward, slowly, inch by inch. I was frozen, just staring in utter horror. And then I heard it, the final, chilling echo. 2 soft knocks. But this time, they weren't coming from the door. They were coming from behind the mirror. The rain hasn't stopped for 3 days. It's the kind of relentless, drumming rain that seeps into your bones and makes you question if the sun ever existed. I'm stuck in this roadside motel, room 8. The neon sign outside flickers, casting a sickly green glow that paints the walls in shades of unease. It's just past midnight, and the only sound besides the rain is the hum of the old air conditioner. Until the knock. 2 sharp raps coming from the wall where the mirror hangs. I held my breath, listening. Silence. My heart hammered against my ribs. It had to be the wind, the old building settling. I told myself that as I walked to the bathroom, needing to splash some water on my face. I stared at my reflection, my breath fogging the glass. My eyes were wide, tired. And then it happened again. 2 distinct knocks, clear as day. This time, they felt like they came from inside. The mirror itself. A tremor went through me. It wasn't my neighbor, it was coming from the glass. Slowly, I reached out, my fingertips trembling. The surface was impossibly cold, colder than the air in the room. The moment my skin made contact, the reflection rippled like disturbed water. My own face distorted, wavering before snapping back into place. I stumbled backward, my heart a frantic bird in my chest. I must be losing it. Sleep deprivation, stress. It had to be. I looked out the window, but the fog had rolled in, thick and suffocating. The world outside had vanished. This whole motel felt sealed, trapped in its own isolated nightmare. I couldn't stay in here. I needed to know. The receptionist had mentioned the room next door, room 9, was empty. It had a matching mirror. Maybe I wasn't crazy. Gathering what little courage I had, I slipped out into the hallway. The lights overhead buzzed and flickered, casting long, dancing shadows. The air was heavy, smelling of damp carpet and something else, something like decay. I reached room 9. The brass number was tarnished. the door slightly ajar. My hand shook as I pushed it open. A gust of cold, musty air hit me, carrying the scent of dust and old rain. The room was a mirror image of mine, but stripped bare. An old mattress leaned against one wall, a single chair sat in the corner, and against the far wall, leaning at an odd angle, was the mirror. It was identical to the one in my room, framed in dark, warped wood. It reflected the empty room, the flickering hallway light, but it didn't reflect me. I took a step forward. Nothing. Another. Still nothing. My heart pounded in my ears. I was standing right in front of it, but the glass showed only the empty space where I should have been. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. As if in answer, the surface of the mirror shimmered. An image slowly resolved from the silver depths. It was a girl. Her hair was dark and soaked, plastered to her pale face. Her eyes were filled with a sorrow so deep it felt like it could drown the world. And this time, she wasn't just staring. Her lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear but understood perfectly in my mind. "You left me here." My throat closed up. I don't understand," I stammered, the words catching in my throat. The girl in the mirror raised a pale hand and the air in the room grew thick, heavy, pressing in on me from all sides. My head started to throb and my memories began to fracture, like splintering glass. Flashes of images assaulted me, blinding headlights, the screech of tires on wet asphalt, a car spinning wildly out of control, my own voice, screaming. I clutched my head, gasping for air as the vision sharpened. I was behind the wheel, and in the passenger seat was her, the girl from the mirror. The car broke through a guardrail, a sickening crunch of metal. The car broke through a guardrail, a sickening crunch of metal. Then, the shock of freezing water, rising fast, swallowing the screams. The river, it all vanished, leaving me on my knees, sobbing. It all vanished, leaving me on my knees, sobbing. It all vanished, leaving me on my knees, sobbing. It all vanished, leaving me on my knees, sobbing. "No, that's not real," I cried out, but the lie tasted like ash in my mouth. Deep down, a locked door in my mind had just been kicked open. I remembered the night, the accident, the body they never found. My best friend, the one I'd told everyone and myself, had died on impact. "Sarah," I whispered, the name a ghost on my lips. In the mirror, her image flickered and she nodded slowly. A new thought echoed in my head, her voice a soft, heartbreaking whisper. "You promised you'd come back." The floor began to vibrate, the walls pulsing faintly like a massive, hidden heart. I scrambled to my feet, turning to run, but the doorway was gone. The wall was solid, seamless. There was no escape. The only light came from the mirror, which now glowed with a faint, ethereal luminescence. Sarah's reflection moved closer, her face pressing against the invisible barrier of the glass until we were nose to nose. "You knocked," I whispered, the horrifying realization dawning on me. Her voice filled my mind again, a sad, lonely echo. I waited. With a sudden, violent pop, the lamp in the hallway exploded, plunging the corridor into darkness and showering the floor with glass. I fell to my knees, my own reflection now shattered into 100 fractured versions of myself in the shards on the floor. And in every single piece of glass, I could see her, standing right behind me, getting closer and closer. I don't know why, but I started crawling toward the mirror. Some force, some desperate need for forgiveness, pulled me forward. "I tried to save you," I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. "I swear, I didn't mean to leave you there." The surface of the mirror began to ripple again, not like water, but like it was being pulled inward. A low, humming sound filled the air, the same sound the storm had made that night. Then Sarah reached through. A pale, dripping hand emerged from the glass. It was so cold it burned like dry ice as it touched my cheek. I tried to scream, but my voice was stolen. The touch wasn't angry, not violent. It was just sad, trembling. "Come back," the whisper said, so faint it was barely there. My tears froze on my skin as the room faded to absolute black. The hand withdrew. The mirror went still. For a moment, I thought it was over. I collapsed, gasping for breath. But when I looked up, my reflection in the mirror didn't move with me. It was still on its knees. It smiled, a faint, heartbreaking curve of the lips, its eyes wet with tears of its own. And I read the final word on its lips, clear as day. Tonight, the digital clock on the motel's nightstand, visible through the now reappeared doorway, blinked 2:59 a.m. I had to run. I had to get out. I pushed myself up, my legs shaking, ready to bolt. But before I could take a single step, I heard it again. 2 slow, heavy knocks. But they weren't from the mirror. They weren't from the hallway. They were coming from inside my own chest, like something trapped in my ribcage was finally ready to be let out. The last knock faded, but the silence that followed was anything but empty. The air in the room grew thick, heavy, almost like it was breathing along with the thunder in my ears. Every corner of this rundown motel seemed to pulse with an unseen heartbeat. I scanned the room, desperate for something solid, something real to ground me. But everything was wrong. The floral wallpaper seemed to writhe and squirm, the floorboards humming a low, menacing tune beneath my palms. "What do you want from me?" The words escaped my lips as a broken whisper. The answer came not from the door, but from the mirror. Its surface rippled like a disturbed pond, and from its depths she emerged. Sarah. Not the drenched, ghostly figure from before, but heartbreakingly human. She looked tired, sad, and like she'd been waiting for a very, very long time. Her voice, soft and shattered, cut through the silence. "You left me there." Tears streamed down my face as I shook my head, the denial raw and frantic. I tried to pull you out. Your hand slipped." The mirror trembled violently. The reflection fractured, splitting into a horrifying slideshow of that night. The car, a metal coffin sinking into black water, the relentless, blinding rain, and Sarah's hand, pale and small, disappearing beneath the surface. The screech of metal, the shattering of glass, the sound of the crash echoed, growing louder and louder until it was unbearable. I collapsed to my knees, the sobs racking my body. "I never stopped hearing you," I whispered to the floor, her eyes in the reflection filled with tears, mirroring my own. "Then why didn't you come back?" I pressed my palm against the cool, unforgiving glass, the barrier between us. "Because I was afraid," I confessed, my voice cracking. "They said you were gone. They told me I had to let go, to forget." The words were a quiet, painful whisper. But I couldn't. For the first time, a faint, sad smile touched Sarah's lips. The single light bulb in the room flickered, and the world around me began to dissolve. The peeling walls of the motel melted away into ripples of dark water. I gasped, a lungful of damp, night air. I was no longer in the room. I was standing on the edge of that same bridge, the rain falling just as it had all those years ago. I looked down, and my reflection stared back from the churning water below. But it wasn't my face. It was Sarah's. The line between memory and this terrifying reality blurred into nothing. Emily. Her voice echoed up from the water, no longer accusatory but filled with a profound sorrow. "I never wanted revenge. I just wanted you to remember me." I sank to my knees on the wet asphalt, the grief a physical weight crushing me. "I remember everything," I sobbed. "Every sound, every second. I never stopped waiting for you to forgive me." The reflection of her face smiled, a genuine, gentle expression this time. "Then set me free." My hand trembled as I reached down, my fingers hovering just above the surface of the water. It was ice cold, a shock against my skin, but this time I didn't pull back. I let the cold seep in, a burning chill that pierced through my skin, my lungs, my memories. As I held my hand there, the storm began to calm. The raging water stilled into a glassy sheet of black. Sarah's face began to fade, slowly, peacefully, dissolving into the ripples of moonlight on the surface. When I opened my eyes, the cold dampness of the bridge was gone. I was back in the motel room. A thin, jagged line ran from the top of the mirror to the bottom, like a healed scar. Outside the grimy window, the oppressive fog had lifted. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in soft shades of gray and pink. I stood up, my legs shaky. My reflection was my own again. One face, one soul. But as I turned toward the door, my blood ran cold. The number on the door wasn't 7 anymore. It was 9. Room 9. The room the old man had warned me about. The one with the mirror. Just then, the door creaked open on its own. Standing in the doorway, framed by the gentle morning light, was the faint silhouette of Sarah. She was smiling, a soft, peaceful expression on her face. Then, as quickly as she appeared, she dissolved into the sunlight. "Goodbye," I whispered, my voice a strange mix of profound grief and overwhelming relief. I stepped over the threshold and walked out into the cool morning air. Behind me, the motel's neon sign flickered one last time. For a split second, the word motel rearranged itself, spelling out a different word. Vacancy. The wind blew gently down the corridor, and with it, it carried a faint, final echo. 2 soft, distant knocks fading into the brand new day. Knock, knock, and then, finally, silence.